Oh my gosh, I think this might be the best chocolate mousse cake I have ever made. It's a layer of homemade chocolate sponge topped with an incredibly smooth chocolate mousse and a rich chocolate ganache, which works so well together. Hi everyone, I'm Aru and let's get straight into it. Start off by separating out your egg whites and your egg yolks for the chocolate sponge. Make sure there are no yolks in the whites. The key is that we don't want any yolks in the whites because then the whites won't whip up nice and fluffy. It's okay to have a little bit of white in the yolk because that won't actually affect anything. Now, if by chance you end up getting more whites in the yolks, then just carefully pour it out like this. Once you've separated out your whites, pour the whites into the bowl of your stand mixer along with a pinch of cream of tartar and get this beating with a whisk attachment. Always make sure both your bowl and your whisk are nice and clean. No water and no oil residue. Start on a medium speed and then slowly increase to high. Whisk until the whites start to froth up a little. Now start adding in half of the sugar that you measured, a spoonful at a time. Save the other half of sugar to whisk into the egg yolks. Sprinkle in a spoon of sugar, let it whisk, and then go in with the next spoonful. Continue doing this until you have added in all of the sugar and then let it whisk for about 5 minutes more until all of the sugar has dissolved and the meringue holds soft peaks like this. Set this aside and grab a bowl. Into the bowl, put in the egg yolks and then add in the sugar that you saved earlier. And then go in with a pinch of salt. Whisk this together until the sugar has melted into the egg yolks. Then add in the oil and whisk this into the batter. The batter will start looking all glossy and nice. And then finally go in with the milk and whisk again. Once everything is combined, we go in with the dry ingredients. Sift in the flour. I'm using cake flour, then cocoa powder and baking powder. Sift this straight into the batter. Use a rubber spatula and fold the flour into the wet ingredients. You don't need to be too gentle at this point. Just need to get everything mixed well. Once all of the flour is mixed through, then we can start adding the whipped egg whites, which is now pretty much meringue. Add the fluffy egg whites a few spoonfuls at a time into the chocolate batter. Then gently fold it in, almost dragging the rubber spatula under the batter and then bringing the batter over itself. Once most of the first bit of egg whites is folded in, add in a couple of spoonfuls and repeat. Keep doing this until all of your egg whites is folded into the batter. Remember to be gentle so that you don't knock out too much of the air from the fluffy egg whites. That is the key to getting a nice light and fluffy sponge cake. Dab a bit of the batter around the cake tin and then stick the baking paper. Now, if you guys want to know more about cutting the perfect lining for your baking pans, please refer back to my video for Victoria sponge cake. I'll link it here. Once the paper is nice and secure, pour the batter into the pan and then pop this into a preheated oven and bake for about 20 minutes until it's firm to the touch. Take it out of the oven and let it cool down completely. While the sponge cake is cooling, let's make the mousse. The mousse is the star of the show. Start off by chopping up some dark cooking chocolate. Chop it as small as possible so that it melts faster. Then pour in a couple of spoons of water into a bowl and sprinkle the gelatin over it. Sprinkle it so that it's nicely spread out over the water. Push it down with a spoon or fork so that it's immersed in the water and leave it to bloom. Now pour 120 milliliters of the cream into a saucepan and get that heating on a low to medium heat just to heat up the cream. Just warm enough to melt the chocolate. You don't want it boiling. Kill the heat, add in the chopped chocolate and let it sit in the warm cream for a few minutes and then stir to mix the chocolate and the cream together. Once the chocolate is melted and mixed through, add in the bloomed gelatin and then mix that through. Leave this aside to cool down just a little bit. While the chocolate is cooling down, whisk up the rest of the cream. Pour the cold cream into the bowl of your stand mixer and get this whisking with a whisk attachment. Just like when we were whisking up the egg whites, make sure that the bowl and the whisk are clean and dry. Add the sugar 1 spoonful at a time. Wait in between each addition to make sure that the sugar is mixed in. You want to get a stiff consistency to this, but don't overmix it because cream tends to split very easily. First, put a few spoonfuls of the whipped cream into the cool chocolate and stir this in, just to loosen up the chocolate a little. Once it's mixed and the chocolate has a bit of a runny consistency, then we can pour the chocolate into the rest of the whipped cream and fold it through. Again, this is similar to how we folded the egg whites into the chocolate sponge cake batter. Gently fold together until all of the cream is mixed through. And then what I like to do is I like to use the whisk attachment by hand and whisk it just to make sure everything is evenly mixed through. Now you can always use a whisk to do this, but that's just one more thing to wash up. Take the cake out of the pan, line the baking pan with some cling film, and make sure that the cling film is hanging over the side of the pan. We are going to use the cling film to pull the dessert out of the pan once it's set in the fridge. Pop the cake back into the pan and then pour the mousse on top and pop this in the fridge to set. I'm going to leave it overnight, but really 4 to 6 hours should be plenty. Once your mousse has set, let's top this with some chocolate ganache to really elevate this. To make the ganache, heat some cream like you did for the mousse and stir in chopped chocolate. It's that easy. Take the mousse cake out of the fridge and then tuck at the cling film, and then your cake should pop right out. Pour the slightly cooled ganache on top of the mousse cake and then use an offset spatula to push the ganache around. Do this quickly before the chilled mousse sets the ganache. And then I'm going to shave a little bit of chocolate over this for some decoration. Chill this for about 30 minutes just to set the ganache. And then slice into this mousse cake with a warm knife to get those sharp, clean edges. And enjoy. The absolute silky smooth chocolate mousse, the contrast that the soft sponge brings in, and the extra chocolate hit from that ganache. So yum. You guys know the drill. Subscribe for more. Bye.